Plan 1819 G and A, characterized by all mobilization schedules they formulated right up to 1912, in practice were against the more economically and culturally developed Germany, became only possible for Russia by choosing one or two alternative strategic plans. The permanent deployment of large forces on the European border district rely on the system of fortification and concentrating armies in the rear governance of the European Russia. This is no accident that Mobilization Schedule 18 prepared by the General Staff in 1910 focused on the second option and therefore had a defensive characteristic. Taking into account that the danger of an attack on an empire by Turkey or even Japan itself, the author of Schedule 18 and War Minister Shashinkolov himself pointed that the extensive expense of the treasury for modernizing forts and the borders of Germany and Austro-Hungary was very expensive indeed. Severe criticisms of the adopted plan from a wide range of military leaders, above all commanders, was Kiev Military District Mikhail Vasily Akasiv and the Quarter Master General of the Gusha, Yuri Nikolaev Danilov, gave rise to the lively debate. The instance of the disagreement was the choice of strategic priorities, when Alexeyev claimed that the main aim of Russian attacks had to be the capture of Budapest, the Hungarian capital, followed by Vienna, the Austro capital. Danilov agreed that the necessary concentrating strikes against the German forces in East Prussia and the subsequent occupation of Königsberg and the straightening out of the Polish salient. In Danilov's opinion, a chance was to carry out an invasion of East Prussian operations as an arise to take advantage of the 16-day window opened by the Russians in the result of the main German forces being diverted to the attack on Paris. The Empire's top generals recalled the two ideas in a meeting on February the 22nd, March the 5th, which is the 5th of March in Gregorian calendar years. In a compromise, they approved the mobilization of Schedule 19. This plan entailed advancing army units on the western border on the onset of the offensive operation of two different directions, in the northwest against Germany and the southwest against Austria-Hungary, without waiting for the complication of the general mobilization. So before mobilization was to take place, the Russians would actually march into Austria-Hungary and eastern Prussia. So the general opinion was that a proposed, incomparable, more active involvement of the Russian armies than its predecessors through the two scenarios A and G. According to option A, which would become the guide for action in the events of Germany launching a main attack force against the French, would be leaving a few corps open to the east to cover up the border with Russia. Austria-Hungary would be the main opponent, against whom the 3rd, 4th, 5th and 8th armies would be concentrated on the southwestern front along the line of Ivanograd, Lublin, Kholm, Dobino and Podgorelov. Along with the 1st and 2nd armies were to be the best of terms of personnel and armament, which would be deployed on the boundary of Sabina Canova and the Neumann Navina and the Western Berg rivers against Germany. Plan G would come into force should Germany prefer to throw the main forces into the Battle of Russia. According to this plan, an additional 1st and 2nd Army and the 4th Army would be sent to the German front. However, the Gushka officers and the commander of the staff would be the border districts, considering the second scenario was the less likely of the two, which was right. Plan A was happening and not Plan G. Regardless of the obvious differences in the choices of targets for the attack in the west, the significant that both plans almost made identical formulated the task of overcoming East Prussia. Although Plan A aims was to achieve the decisive defeat of the Austro-Hungarians, while Plan G intention was to prevent Austro-Hungarian forces reaching the rear of the Russian forces, contradicting the operation in the German front, but no plan mentioned organizing for the attack on the Polish salient towards Berlin during the first weeks of the war, which the French had constantly been requesting. At first glance, the plans of divergence advances on the northwest and southwestern fronts looked doomed from the outset, but the Tsarist command believed that the general strategic situation of the opening periods of the war would give the Russian army a good chance of carrying out both offensive actions. The General Staff firmly believed that the superiority of the forces available for command in the southwestern front over those over the Austro-Hungarians. As for Germany, the success of Eastern Prussia and then perhaps Volsa or the campaigns would relent the German divisions from being distracted and overcoming the French defenses. As Kornilov would later recall in 1912, he had a notable conversation with the French Chief of Staff, Joseph Jacques Joffre, which is the man who made Plan 19, concentrating the future war. We were on one opinion. The German plan was to first defeat the French, or France, with a number of decisive strikes, and then descend upon Russia. From this we can conclude our task would be to advance simultaneously on Germany, from the east and the west. Other conditions for implementation of this plan would be favorable for the geographical positioning of the Polish salient, which would be news for launching a pad for offensive operations in Central Europe. A liberal government coming into power in Sweden on the eve of the war would be instant in maintaining neutrality and the neutrality of the Ottoman Empire, if only during for the first few months of military action, would prove for good flanks and most men being on the eastern front of World War I. So Sweden had their northern border secure, so the Germans couldn't do a northern flank from Sweden, and the Ottoman Empire in the south, while going to join the war, they didn't join the war immediately, and they were mostly against the British. But in Starokamish and most places like that, there were already some armies stationed just in case, because they thought the Japanese were going to go on the German side, but the British had the Anglo-Japanese alliance, so they joined the side of the Entente. But there were still a couple of people in Siberia, so when the Ottomans did join the war, some crack troops, especially like the Wild Division and most of the Caucasus, most of the people in the Caucasus would join on the Ottoman defense of Starokamish and other operations like that. But the main plan was for Germany and Austro Hungarian. But the main plan was focused on the Germans and the Austro Hungarians because they were the biggest threat to the Russian Empire, even though in the end the Russian Empire would be its own threat. So thanks for that, guys. I did a video just now and I didn't feel too good about it, so you know what, take this long video, you know what, have this long one. I don't have enough footage to supplement it, but who cares? I would rather have a good nice video than a short nice, you know. It does help. You know what, I didn't really feel too good about that 2-minute video, especially since I'm the man that makes like 20-minute videos on average, so that 2-minute one was kind of weird. But if you want a simplification of Plan A, G and Schedule 19 and 18, there you go. But it's basically the same thing, only longer and more concise and more history-ish. So there's also a couple of plans on politics in the Baltics, and of course with the Japanese and after the Russo-Japanese War and the reforms and that. But this is World War I, so that all leads up to it, and the Baltic and Black Sea states would also be part of the plan. But the Germans didn't enter the Black Sea or the Gulf of Riga or anything like that until 1915, 1916. So while the plans were there, they still had seaports and sea guns and sea fortifications ready if the Germans or the Austro-Hungarians ever decided to enter through the Black Sea or the Bosphorus Straits. So there you go. Anyway, that's it. Hope you enjoyed this longer one. If you're a fan of the longer content, you have what do you call it, endurance. You have a lot of endurance, my friend. The Russian season is going to be pretty long but pretty short in actuality of uploads, so you're in for a grind, my friend, but you're in for a treat as well, especially if you like the Chechens. I got a good video for those. The Wild Division, my friends. Learn something.